I was camping in Arizona with my cousin. We built a fire, then got some marshmallows out to make some s'mores. It was a warm night, but we were having fun. I hadn't gone camping with my cousin in years since we were teenagers. I blew the flame out of my marshmallow and crushed it in between 2 graham crackers and chocolate. "Do you want to hear a story?" my cousin asked, with a sly grin on his face. When we were younger, he used to always tell scary stories around the fire, and I couldn't help but get excited. "Let's see if you still got it," I said with my own grin. "Have you ever heard of a skinwalker?" he asked, popping a marshmallow in his mouth. "Yeah, isn't it a native legend or something? Something about turning into a coyote?" "Yes, a skinwalker is a Navajo witch that wears the skins of animals and can turn into any animal they want." He leans in closer so the fire illuminates his face. "What's so scary about that?" I asked. "You don't want to run into one of them, trust me, I have." I say nothing, waiting for him to continue on with the story. I was visiting my friend on the res one day after summer graduation. We were hanging out on the porch, talking about what we were going to do now that school was over, just wasting the night away. Then, I noticed a coyote just wandering around a few yards away. Now in this neighborhood, there aren't any fences dividing the yards, so I could see it walk from yard to yard. I nudged my friend and nodded over to it. We got quiet and just watched it. Then it stood up on 2 feet. It pressed up against the house in the shadows and just scooted along on 2 feet like a human. I was shocked. I didn't think coyotes could do that. My friend whispered to me, "That's not a coyote." I asked what he meant. "That's a skinwalker." Now he had mentioned skinwalkers to me before, but I thought it was just a legend, and that he surely didn't believe some of the old stories his parents told him to scare him from playing in the woods at night. Once it was next to a garbage can, it hopped on top of it and then leaped up, grabbing onto the ledge of the window. The window was open. Fear filled my body as I realized 2 things. No coyote could do that, and whoever was in that room was about to have a very bad night. Then, we heard the guy in that room screaming. Then his screams were drowned out by a scream that somewhat sounded like a mix of an animal and a human. We fell out of our chairs, scrambling to get inside. We locked all the doors and windows and hid. That was the scariest night of my life. I don't remember if the cops showed up to that house. We were too scared to even leave the room and check, but it's a night I'll never forget. Goosebumps covered my arms. Now that was a good story. I didn't believe him about it being true, but it was a good story nonetheless. "Looks like you still got it. That was good. You got me scared to look up in the trees." I laughed nervously, looking behind me at the forest that just seemed a little scarier now. "Hey, every word of that is true. I didn't make this one up." "No need to make up a story when you lived it." We sat in silence for a bit, and I thought about the story he just told. For some reason, a coyote creeping around on 2 legs just seems comical. I laughed to myself. Maybe it would be creepier in person. After another 30 minutes, the fire dies down and we crawl into our tent. All thoughts of skinwalkers had left our heads. I was drifting off to sleep when a stick snapping outside of our tent woke me up. My face was facing the wall of the tent, and I don't think it quite registered what woke me up. After a few seconds, I closed my eyes and prepared to go back to sleep. Then I heard my cousin outside of the tent, calling my name. I opened my eyes. I assumed my cousin had stepped outside for some reason, but I didn't know what he would need out there. I didn't quite want to leave my sleeping bag, so I was just going to pretend like I didn't hear him. I closed my eyes again, and then I heard him calling. Annoyed, I sat up to leave the tent. That's when I noticed my cousin right next to me asleep. I had heard him call me from outside the tent. I heard it twice. There was no mistake. I shook him awake. "What do you want?" he asked groggily, not opening his eyes. "I heard your voice outside of the tent calling my name. Am I going crazy?" He opened his eyes and had a panicked look. "Are you absolutely sure? My voice?" he asks. "Yeah, twice. There's no mistaking it." He pulls me down to the ground next to him, and we hear some shuffling outside the tent. I start to freak out a little bit. "That's a skinwalker. They can imitate voices. That's how they draw you in, he whispers. A skinwalker? Are you sure? What's the odds of a skinwalker showing up on the same night you tell me the story? Don't mess with me, I whispered back. Talking about a skinwalker at night can draw it into you. I didn't think about it when I told you the story. Just stay quiet, stay down, and hopefully it will leave. The sound of another stick snapping didn't help at all. After a few long, frightful hours of just laying there with our eyes wide open, it seemed to go away. I eventually fell asleep, I guess. I don't remember falling asleep. I don't know how I could. My cousin was already packing everything up by the time I crawled out of the tent. I know we had planned for 2 nights, but we're getting out of here right now. Yeah, I'm with you on that one, I said. Now, I can't say for sure it was a skinwalker that night, but I can say I definitely heard my cousin calling my name from outside of the tent when he was sleeping right next to me. And that was by far the creepiest thing that had ever happened to me. So take my advice and save the skinwalker stories for when you're safe in the comforts of your own home and not for the campfire.